so excited to talk to you, partially because you're my friend, but also because I feel like the work that you do for graphic design, which is what we're going to be talking about today, is stuff that like I don't even myself think about often enough. Like it's such beautiful work, and I think it's like a part of because we've been on this podcast, we've been exploring like all different creative avenues and outlets, and I think this is one that doesn't get mentioned enough. This kind of design work, I guess it's everywhere too, right?
People do not realize
yeah
the stuff, the breadth of all that we do.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Like graphic design and product design, which is similar, just tangible more so. People don't think about it. Like a flyer, a poster.
No, it literally surrounds us like crazy.
Yeah, a book cover.
Yeah.
Like everything. But I wanted to start by talking about, we've talked about this a little bit, just kind of your like being a creative person at a young age. Because I remember asking you, have you always been a creative person? And you were like, oh, yes.
Yeah.
I have.
Yeah.
And you had a crazy journey of like a bunch of stuff you've tried out.
I've tried it all.
Yeah. Tell me a little bit about like your childhood and what that was like.
Well, my mom loved to foster creativity with us. I think it was way later in like high school that I realized that not every family, not every household has a bunch of like art supplies just at any given moment.
Yeah.
But like we'd have all that stuff all the time. And whether it be just like coloring, drawing, like creating things, like I loved like Tinker Toys or like Lincoln Logs.
Oh my goodness, we had Tinker Toys.
I did.
They were so fun.
I went through a Star Trek phase where I literally like made like the Starship Enterprise out of Tinker Toys. And
wow.
See, so it wasn't just like the drawing, like designing kind of stuff. It was like I loved to make stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so my mom was all like genuinely my number one fan when it came to that.
Which is such a blessing.
No, yeah.
Like, especially like you said it, there's so many times when that's not appreciated like that at a young age, and that's kind of suppressed in children, which I think is really sad. But that's so beautiful. And I think you can definitely like, I know from firsthand experience, you can definitely see that, how that has affected you in all of the stuff you do. Because you do graphic design, but you do so much other stuff. You do music, you do like all of these things. And it comes through in the stuff that you create because you create such beautiful things. And it's like, I feel like every time I see you, you're working on something. Like you're always making something.
That's true. No, as you were talking about it just now, I was thinking, I wonder if the reason why my mom's been so supportive is just that she just wished that she had that. You know, kind of like now that we're in the age where we're thinking about like, oh, if we're going to have kids, like what would I do differently? Right. I wonder if for her it was like, I really wish I got pushed into this sooner. I'm going to do this with my kids.
Well, and she did creative stuff herself.
Yeah.
Right, as a career.
She did fashion. I remember when I was young, she'd like show me her little sketchbooks, which were so cute.
Oh my goodness.
So cool. Yeah.
I love that. That is amazing.
Yeah.
So then with all this stuff, because I remember you telling me like you were writing and you were acting and you were filmmaking and you were making music and you were doing audio mixing and you like fashion and you like some interior design stuff. Like there's so much stuff, right?
Yeah.
So then kind of how did you land on graphic design as your major? Because you're about to graduate as a senior with a graphic design major.
Yeah. My best friend, Verena, she's 1 year older than me, and we did your book together. And so we got to go through that together. And so she was the editor the year before I became the editor. And then she went off to Southern to go do graphic design. And when she kind of chose graphic design, because we both ended up choosing it because how much we loved and enjoyed doing layout in your book. But it was also like so comforting to like have a good friend also majoring in something that you're thinking about as well. So when she went to Southern and did graphic design, I was like, I really like that. And then I had that full year after she left, and I put so much time and effort into that book. And I felt like I was a follower, especially at the end of my senior year. I was so stressed. I didn't know what I wanted to do. So kind of just knowing that my friend Raina was doing graphic design, and then my other good friend Dara, she was going to Southern. And so I was like, oh, this is great. She'll be there and my friend Raina will be there. We'll do graphic design together. And so I applied and I got a scholarship from Southern for graphic design, which was so cool because I had absolutely nothing in my portfolio at the time. But I got some money.
Yeah, it's amazing.
But then just out of the blue, I made the decision to come here. I think that decision happened after I found out that Reina dropped graphic design and she did biology instead. So that was really funny. So nothing that I thought at like the beginning of May before I graduated was going to be my life happened.
Which is a really good point, because we'll get into that in a bit, of like how that's such a common theme in creative pursuits. Is like the way that you think things are going to go is not how they go. And then problem solving through that is a really interesting thing.
Yeah.
I love talking to people about things they're passionate about. And you have told me in the past that you love specifically branding.
Okay.
Which I think is so interesting. What I want to know is, what is the, okay, we'll do it in two parts. You can answer in two parts. What is the process? What goes into the process of creating a brand that's cohesive and makes sense and intentional?
Well, it's about kind of getting to know whatever entity you're creating a brand for really well, and then kind of making like one logo. Obviously, a brand isn't just a logo, but the logo is kind of the face. And then making a logo that embodies all of this entity's complex nature, which is really hard, but also very fun. It's also, I really, really enjoy working with people and bringing their visions to life. So that's really fun. I have like a formula with the branding, which is like, the logo and then typography. And then I always like to do some sort of texture that I then like integrate into the various print digital forms, whatever that may be.
Wow. That's super interesting. This brings up a really good question. I feel like in your creative projects, a lot of times you are making a product for someone else, like you're working for a client of some sort. How do you find the balance between delivering what the client wants and fulfilling your personal creativity?
Oh, that is still, again, I haven't even had my degree yet, and I know I have so much opportunities ahead of me to really hone that skill. But no, it is really hard. So just recently, I mean, I told you about my senior project, which was rebranding or branding eCantori and really bringing them to life.
For anyone listening who doesn't know what that is, by the way, eCantori is like the select choir at the university that we go to.
Yeah. So there was an established brand already. The logo was not really memorable, and the logo wasn't used really anywhere. So it was really fun to work with Dr. Scott.
Yeah.
He had his kind of check boxes that he really wanted of a logo and of a brand.
Right.
And I had my check boxes.
Yeah.
And sometimes the Venn diagram didn't exist between those.
Yeah.
But and so I mentioned that I love getting to know whatever entity. And so that was a very personal and fun project for me, because I've been a part of eCantori for now 5 years. And so I felt like I definitely knew what we stood for as a touring choir. Right. And so then I could really bring that to the table when I created the brand. I feel like there's a fine line of like listening to a client when they want something with the logo, but there's also like, you need to be kind of firm with, like, if you think that what you're trying to convince the customer or your client of is good, will make sense for the logo or brand, you should do it. And I definitely stood up a couple times. I was like, I'm very, very passionate about this thing. Like, this is a must. And again, I'm sure my view on that will change a little bit as I continue to take on new clients in the future. But it's never like, oh, me trying to steamroll over my client. It's just trying to open the client's eyes to something that, because they're not a designer, they can't really see.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. And that confidence, having that confidence in what you have to bring to the table and then stepping forward in that confidence and saying, I hear what you're saying, I respect what you're saying, but also I know what I have to bring to the table. I know what my talent is as a designer, and this is my opinion. I think that's something that's just been really scary for me in the past. Like, that's why I could never see myself going into like commercial work, because it's hard for me to think about like doing work where it's like, okay, I'm given a product and I'm given an idea and I just execute it and it's not mine.
Yeah.
You know, and maybe that's not how all commercial works.
Yeah.
But that's always been really frightening to me, that idea of trying to balance your personal creative fulfillment with whatever your client is wanting. I think you do that really beautifully, actually, because you do it all the time, right? Like, you create so many posters for things around campus, but you're most of the time when you're creating posters, it's not a poster for an event that you're running or whatever. So it's like someone has an idea, or like the event is their idea and then they come to you. Or is it worse when someone's like, hey, I want this, but they have no idea?
I don't know. I really enjoy working with people who like kind of know what they want, and you can really bring that to life. But then, it opens up so much when, like, every year when I've designed posters for Dr. J's voice recitals, she's like, have fun. Do whatever you want. And that is crazy, because the first one I designed, I don't know if you've seen that one. You probably did. That
I'm
one,
sure
the name of this recital was called A Broadway Sampler. And she, on her wall, she has so many posters because she's been doing this for so long.
Yes.
And I kept seeing those and I'm like, no, I have to do something different. You know what I mean? And so I came up with the idea of like, like paint samples. And so they were little like paint chips. And at the bottom where you'd see like the color number or whatever,
right.
I put like the name of a musical and then like their logo or something.
That is so cute.
It was really fun, and she loved it. And I think it was pretty obvious to the people who saw the poster, like, oh, I get it. Like, it's sampling a bunch of Broadway musicals. Yeah. So yes, it challenges me creatively, but in the moment, it is a nightmare to have so many options to choose from when someone's like, do whatever.
Do you ever have creative block?
Oh, all the time.
How do you overcome that? Do you have an answer for that?
Well, this is not the official answer. The official answer the official protocol that Jacob follows is to procrastinate until the time pressures you so much that then you just, like a little pearl or a little clam, you just pop out a little pearl. I think I made the one for Dr. J this year the day that they needed to put it up.
Word.
Or no, the night before I came up with the idea.
I feel like there's something to be said for pressure, though.
Oh yeah.
And what it can do for you. Yeah. But that's like, have you found any ways to like constructively work through a creative block, like when you're in the midst of it, or do you just have to step away and take a break?
Kind of both. I mean, I typically look for inspiration when I'm feeling so lost as to what I should do for something. But then that leads me down more rabbit holes of then feeling like I'm like not creative because I'm not, the idea isn't coming completely organically out of my own imagination.
Yeah.
So looking for inspiration, just sketching out very loose ideas. Oh, the biggest thing that I feel like I've learned throughout all of my projects is that sometimes the most craziest, weirdest like ideas that kind of like pop into your head like intrusive thoughts are great ones.
Yeah. You're sitting there, you're like sketching it and you're like that's
it's
funny.
Stupid. Yeah. I'm like, what if you tried this and it breaks all rules that we've been taught? And then you look at it and you're like, that works really well.
That's incredible.
So kind of learning to trust yourself, because I'm sure there's like our unconscious like holds a lot of things that it doesn't immediately come to.
I often wonder, like, if I could have full access to my subconscious,
You'd be unstoppable.
how many incredible ideas are just brimming there that I have no idea are there.
Yeah.
I often think about that. That's a really good point. Kind of going along the same lines, you say you look for inspiration. What are some of the things that you find inspire you?
Oh, well, when I referred to that, I was mainly talking about Pinterest.
Okay. And I know you said something to me which was really beautiful, and I wrote it down here because I loved it. I remember talking to you one time about like what inspires you, and you were like, people who genuinely love what they do and people who are like in their zone.
Mm-hmm.
You were like, seeing people who are in their zone puts me in my zone.
Oh, no, that's what I was going to say, which was like today when I saw Cass present, I felt like I haven't done much designing lately. I'm not in any classes that I'm like, oh, I'm designing. And I haven't been doing much on the side at the moment just because I'm so busy with so many other things.
Right.
But watching Cass present today, her project, it was like, I want to do that. I want to do that immediately. Same thing with like, when I was a yearbook editor here, I would look at certain through old yearbooks and just seeing those made me be like, I want to do that. Like, I want to do that right now. And I've already talked about him. But Dr. Scott, that man, when he is in his element, like, wow. And it's so inspiring to kind of watch and be a part of. But
people who are like that are just insane, and it's like infectious.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Yeah. That's exactly how it feels. And I know most people do get inspired by other people like doing what they love too. You know what I mean? We just don't like realize it. So then I feel like I'm just returning the favor when when I then get into my zone and I do stuff, and then I hear from you being like, oh, Jacob, you're so great. And I'm like, Chris, I didn't even know.
It is a beautiful thing. It is a beautiful thing to watch people who are passionate about something. And there are a few things in life that bring me more joy than talking to someone about something they're passionate about and just watching their whole face like light up. No,
literally. My partner told me that when he fell in love with me was when I went on this 2-hour tangent talking about the themes and motifs of Animal Crossing music.
Okay, first of all, which Animal Crossing?
Well, the one that I grew up on was the Wii one.
Okay.
So City Folk.
Okay.
Which I think has the same music as the one on the DS, Wild World, I think. Anyways, I gave him this whole dissertation about just like the themes and everything of how, because in Animal Crossing, there's a different hourly theme.
Right.
That plays just while you're doing fishing,
whatever
shopping, whatever you're doing.
Yeah.
And then the music is just so well written. And then, the reason why I talked at the time to him about it was I had just finished my hyperfixation phase on the Switch one.
Oh yeah.
I'm not kidding when I say hyperfixation. I literally made an Instagram account and posted about.
Oh my word.
I was really, really into it. That single-handedly got me through the pandemic.
I bet.
But I told him, I just was like, oh, and so that's how it was in City Folk, the Wii one. And then they've just done it again with the Switch. And he just sat there the whole time and was like, I don't know anything he's talking about, but man, is he passionate.
Yeah, it's so beautiful. It's so inspiring when people are passionate about stuff like that. I really want to I wonder if you have any advice about like, how do you find your zone, get into your zone? Have you seen Soul, the Pixar
Oh, that's such a good movie.
film?
I only saw it once.
I love that movie.
It was so good.
You know how like when they go into their zone,
yes,
they like, it's like the world around them disappears and they're just like, they're in the zone. And that's kind of what I picture. How do you, what do you find helps you get there?
Honestly, just stop avoiding whatever it is. Like typically, like I've been trained as a graphic designer to sketch, you know what I mean? And and I always just dread it just because it feels like it's pointless, it's mundane. But the second that I actually I'm like, Jacob, just do it.
Start doing it.
genuinely, that is the hardest part of any project for me, is starting it.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
You've talked about in the past not being afraid to try new things and see like what works for you.
Yeah.
Try new creative outlets and see what works for you, which is something that clearly you've done because you're a graphic designer, but you're also a musician, like I said, and a writer, and you've done acting and filmmaking and all this stuff. And you just have like such a fearless approach to like trying things like that. And it's really beautiful.
Thank you. I didn't realize it until I actually talked about it with you the other day. I was like, wow, okay.
Yeah, you've done a lot. I also do want to talk about like just fear of failure and that idea. Is that something you struggle with? And if so, how do you overcome that?
Yes, of course.
Yeah.
I feel on a more day-to-day basis the fear of failure when it comes to me as a musician. I don't know why, because truly both graphic design and music, like it's truly like you go as far as what you make for yourself, you know what I mean? Like you are like there's no limits, you just have to keep working, you know what I mean?
Right.
But just recently I've been looking for jobs post-grad, and this whole time I felt honestly like I enjoy designing, I make good stuff, but lately with looking for a job, it's like, wow, like I need this many years of experience. Like I'm not just going to get this amazing dream job right out of college. So that's been really plaguing me and just making me doubt my skills. And so like when I a few minutes ago said that, I haven't been doing anything graphic design lately, that stresses me out because, I mean, yes, I'm always doing something design related.
Yeah.
Like today I whipped out a poster for eKantori, but like there's a difference between like the mundane, easy tasks versus like, like me, like coming up with a brand, because that takes forever.
Yeah.
But I think every time I start a project for a graphic design, I still have this kind of worry that it's not gonna be good. It's not gonna have that kind of that effect that all of my other good stuff has. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that really scares me. But then I come to the end of every project and it's like, okay, didn't need to worry about that.
It kind of all gets taken care of. And I think for me, which obviously we've been talking a lot on this podcast about faith-based creativity. For me, a lot of that just comes down to a trust in God, and just kind of a surrender of like, hey, you gave me these gifts. Yeah. And you're going to bring me through using them in whatever way it's going to end up being. And that surrender is so hard, like that letting go of control, but it's really important.
Yes.
I think. And I know you've talked about I remember you telling me when my spirituality is not in a good place, my like creative ventures also suffer. Like they kind of play off of each other and affect each other in a way.
Yes.
I wonder if you could just talk a little bit more about how your faith impacts your work.
Yeah, I think I told you about how like last quarter was just really, really tough.
Yeah.
And it's so funny that I went through what felt like a physical, emotional, spiritual low last quarter, but it was also coincided with my senior project. I think I see the biggest correlation during like at the ideation, the beginning of projects, because again, those are the hardest for me. And so if I feel like kind of lost with where like what I believe and like just kind of all over the place, that stuff typically also kind of is disjointed. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it absolutely does. It's like interesting how at the core they're so connected.
Yeah.
Like, because we talk a lot on here about how creativity is at the core of who we are. And I think spirituality also is.
Yes.
And so it's so interesting how they affect each other.
I've been thinking about it a lot lately, actually, since last week, because I've felt like I've been in some sort of like spiritual fog for years now. And I'm taking creation in the Bible at the moment. And Matilda Fright's great. She really gets you thinking about stuff. I really love what she does with her classes. Yeah. And one of the things that we read this week that I was like, oh, that's so cool. I love how the author said it, was that God like stopped creating, like he set forth all the stuff for us and then pretty much handed it over to us to continue the job.
Yes.
Which is really cool.
Yeah.
And so I've been kind of thinking about that. And that is probably the most like divine like trait that he can give to us humans, is to create. And the more I've been thinking about that, I'm like, that's really cool.
The whole concept for this podcast was born, like it's literally called Creative by Design, was born out of the idea that being a creator is so innate to who we are. Because not only did he hand it over to us, he made us in his image.
Own image. Yep.
And he's a creator before he's anything else.
Yeah.
Like this is at the core of what this podcast is about. And in that sense, we should never condemn creativity. Or like that's why it makes me so sad when that happens to children at a young age.
Yeah.
And that's why I think it's so cool that you had that experience of like a mom that encouraged you in that, and also really inspiring because for people who didn't have that experience, hearing that people like your mom do exist gets that seed planted in your mind of like, maybe it doesn't have to be the way that my parents or the people who raised me reacted to my creative desires. You know, I think that's really interesting. I also love that you've said in the past that like in terms of trusting God with where he takes you in creativity, when we see a need, we fill it, right? Like especially in graphic design, that a client has a need and you filled that. But there might be jobs that you might be doing years from now that don't even exist yet. I love, like, can you elaborate on what you...
Well, I told you, I use the example of like literally what I'm doing right now for choir. When I joined eCantori, they just had one position called core librarian, and that person is just like the main student worker that helps plan tours, keeps the choir organized and the music organized. And I remember the reason why I came in contact with the logo of eCantori was because I made the virtual choir videos. Wow, that was a lot of time.
During the pandemic. Right?
I pieced together 30 plus people's like recording of them singing.
Yeah, you do so much stuff. Jacob.
Thank you. Thank you for gassing me up. But so I remember when I was making the video, I was like, do we have a logo? And then they sent me the logo. I was like, oh.
No.
So I used that logo. I used it for several years. And then I shortly after I was selected and asked if I'd want to work for Dr. Scott and be one of his student workers. And I've slowly created this role that there was a need already for it, but nobody to fill it. Didn't exist. It didn't exist
as a role.
And so with my senior project, which was like the capstone of it all, which was a complete marketing branding package for the choirs to use when I'm gone.
Sure.
It was like, wow. I've been thinking several times recently, like, wow, 5 years ago, none of this existed, and the choirs are in a much better place because of it. And I love doing that. I love seeing through the cracks and places that people wouldn't normally look.
That's the kind of thing that feels like such a God thing to me too, right? Is like the fact that he gives you that sight and that ability to see through those cracks and be like, hey, this doesn't exist yet, but like I'm a creative person, and in my creativity, I'm seeing that this is a need that's there. And I think that's really encouraging too for people like that are our age, that are about to enter the workforce, and like I don't feel like I don't know where I fit in. Where am I going? What am I doing? I like to make stuff, but like, where am I going? What am I doing? It might not even exist yet. Like, you might be creating it.
It's so scary, but again, back to what you said earlier, the whole surrender thing. Yep.
It's very difficult. I do really want to ask you, I think we've talked in the past, there's a fine line between being inspired by what other humans are creating and being bogged down and feeling like inadequate.
Yeah.
Looking at what other people are creating because you then start comparing yourself to them. Do you have any advice on how to overcome that, like that comparison? Yeah. Comparison is a thief of joy, right? That's what people say. But
wow, preach.
Yeah. But I know that's something that you've struggled with in the past.
Yeah.
You've said.
Well, as a musician, I mean, whenever especially as a singer, because it seems like so many people can sing, you know what I mean? I'm constantly reminding myself and other people that and I know it sounds cheesy, but everybody has a different journey. It's so different.
Quite literally.
So like when you see either a singer or a designer doing something crazy at such a young age, you can't get bogged. Like, honestly, you should look at it and just be in awe at what they're doing and be inspired. But remind yourself that, like, we don't have to compare what you do to they do, because
everyone's so unique.
Yeah. And even if you feel like what you're doing at the moment isn't anywhere near the caliber of what that person is doing, doesn't mean you're not going to get there. Truly, when you start thinking that way, that's when you truly become your biggest obstacle.
Yeah, absolutely. It's so beautiful. You seem so self-aware of some of these issues and things that people struggle with.
Yeah, no, I think I told you this the other day, which was, as especially an upperclassman music major, I get to see a lot of the voice majors go through the same exact stuff I went through years ago. Where and same thing with design too. We have this imposter syndrome. And I know, because I am not them, I see like all of this beautiful talent and ability that they have, that in that moment they can't see for themselves. And so then that's when I get to be like, it's going to work out. Like, you just got to trust yourself. Don't compare yourself to other people, which is so funny because I think I do it. Now I know how to say it. People say that your love languages are associated with, or how you express the love languages. So like I'm a words of affirmation person, right. And I do it because
that's what you want, desire in return.
Yeah. I am so hard on myself, and I need someone to tell me all the time, like, you're good enough. You got this. Like there's a path for you.
Right.
And so I really go out of my way like crazy to do it to other people.
To offer that to other people.
Yeah.
I think that's why having a community in pursuits like this is so important. And like, even like being able to have conversations like this on a podcast that people can come listen to feel a little less alone in this journey. Because I think also, I'm curious to hear your opinion on this. As much as it can be like community-based and community building, being a creative, I think interestingly, it can also become a very isolating experience because it is so unique to each individual. And so then you feel like, well, no one is me. So no one can understand what I'm going through in this creative process or in this creative journey. And then it becomes really isolating. Like, is that ever something you deal with?
Yeah. Yes, I have experienced that. With both design and music, it's this weird kind of like, oh, we're teaching people like how to be creative or how to sing and whatever. But also everyone's also kind of in competition with each other, even though that's... I don't even know if there's even a way that you could structure things.
You could avoid that.
Right. Because like, I know I get competitive thoughts all the time, and I know other people do too. It's really hard to be able to like kind of create community with people, and like you were saying, like be able to see that we're all on different paths at different times. You know what I mean?
It's an interesting dichotomy between community and individuality. Like, it's a really interesting thing, and I think it becomes especially difficult in creative pursuits because everything is so unique. And sometimes it's like, if we don't have a way to quantify the value of a project, then we're like, what do we do with this?
Yeah.
As humans, like, we like to fit things into boxes. But then if we do have a way to quantify it, we're like, well, that feels like removing the creativity out of it, you know? And I think that's really interesting. I want to kind of just conclude our conversation today by asking you, because you're about to graduate, where do you hope God takes you in the future? Or like, what are your priorities going into the future and looking for jobs and that kind of thing?
Well, kind of what we've already talked about, two things. I'd love, honestly, even if this sounds crazy, I'd love to be doing something that I have no clue what that is at this moment. And I, what was the other thing I was going to say? It's gone.
Oh. Poof. I guess that was the most important thing then.
No, there was another thing that I wanted to say. Ask your question again. Or just
say it again.
Like, yeah.
Okay. Where do you hope God takes you in the future, and kind of what are your priorities? There it is.
See? Wow, you're good.
Don't say it when again.
No.
Did it?
Yeah.
Oh my God. Okay. Priorities. Where do you hope God takes you in the future?
Okay, I remember. Okay, so we talked about how like creating and seeing a need and filling it.
Sure.
Is such a cool and defined capability, ability. I just want to be able. I hope that whatever I'm doing, that I'll still be able to feel this kind of sense of satisfaction as I like bring people's dreams to life, whatever that thing may be.
Yeah, filling those needs as you find them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, beautiful. I love being able to have conversations like this.
Yeah.
Especially with people that I've known but haven't gotten to necessarily talk.
We started college together.
I know.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
But you've always been the untouchable goddess of lighting, Krista Van Hook, University Singers alumni.
Yeah, but thank you so much for your time and for
course.
talking about your experiences. So I think that's so valuable, always hearing about what other people have been through and how they navigate things. So yeah, thank you so much for that.
Of course. Thank you.